gosh. Got it?
Yes.
Oh, now we have to look at Facebook.
I've got it
Right.
open. Yeah.
Morena, everyone. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I'm still operating on SA time. This is 10 o'clock. Oh, it's, yeah, just after 10 Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'm Edina. This is Kathleen.
Hi, everyone.
And we've gone live. Now, we've got a busy little session this morning. We're going to be talking about Australian citizenship for children and going through some of that information. It'll be quite jam-packed, that part of this today's session. And we also wanted to talk a bit about New Zealanders who are in New Zealand wanting to move over to Australia. I see in the media this week that, and in fact, since the borders have opened, there's been rumours of lots of New Zealanders going to be moving across to Australia for obvious reasons. But we just wanted to put some information out there. We actually had one contact this week, didn't we, Kathleen?
We did.
And I'll get you to actually talk about what your week's been like, Kathleen.
It's been a great week. Of course, we started our free 10-minute callback sessions this week. And I've been really impressed with, the nature of inquiries. We've had inquiries ranging from, citizenship to movement records to character issues, and also lots of inquiries about family groups. How does the family group get citizenship? And I've appreciated those who've actually taken the time to call, because I can see that people are really wanting to get good information. They're really wanting some direction about how to get started on this process. And everything I've kind of, told people that unfortunately those 10-minute sessions don't replace the need for a full consultation. We still need to be able to sit down with them and have a proper assessment of looking at all of their circumstances, because as we've said in previous lives, New Zealand citizens, depending on when you arrived here in Australia, your status might be different to another New Zealand citizen. So you can't just apply the same blanket rule that you hear about someone else's situation to your own situation. And also I've been doing some face-to-face consultations, Edina. I've also had a really good experience with those this week. It takes a lot to have to invite someone into your home. So I'm really grateful for those who have accepted the face-to-face consultations. And it's really great because then I get to get out of the house as well. And I get to go and meet, so many different people from different walks of life. And I know that people are it can be overwhelming, when you get all that information in 45 minutes to about an hour. But I can see that the people that we've been meeting with, they've been really prepared. They've been prepared about the questions they're going to ask. And they even come up with these different scenarios. What if we did this, compared to this? So, one of the people that I've met this week was a couple who'd been here for close to 20 years. 20 years. And that's a long time to be in a country on, just a temporary status on the 444 visa. And I hear the comment about, I should have done something earlier. I should have done something about my immigration status earlier. But we know, of course, Edina, that, perhaps you could have done something earlier if you came before 2001. But if you came after 2001, your pathways would have been very slim, because we know that the subclass 189 was not introduced until 2017. So don't feel bad, those of you out there who think, oh, I should have done something, I should have, maybe, perhaps, but again, the subclass 189 New Zealand stream wasn't introduced until 17 years later, after 2001. So that's a little bit about my week. How about your week, though? Because you've actually, tested positive with COVID, and yet you're still able to do this live with me. So thank you so much.
Oh, no, I've been all good. Obviously, yeah, I tested positive. I think this is day 3 3 days ago, and yeah, I've been good actually. I'm very fortunate that I haven't really had many symptoms, and actually today I feel heaps better. But yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm all good. And the good thing about this type of work, obviously, I can work from home,
Yes.
so long as I'm not laid up in bed. Everyone's telling me to rest, but I'm like, oh, I've got no time to rest. Too many important applications and responses that we needed to do with the department. So, but no, luckily, I know I could rest if I needed to, because I got you guys there to help me now. But no, I'm all good. I'm all good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
But I do want to do a little plug. This morning, my daughter-in-law is going into hospital. She's booked in. We're going to have moko number 8 today.
Yes.
It was meant to be this morning, but it got pushed back to about lunchtime. So about lunchtime is today, in a few more hours, we should have moko number 8. We don't know if it's a boy or girl. So a bit exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So that's a good day, good week. Just that because I've had this COVID, I won't go near them for a while.
That's it.
So we'll have to just do video calls.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I just seen a question come through from a Lauren. Good morning. And you've asked if we could please elaborate on the New Zealand 189 skilled migrants visa. Do you want to talk about that, Kath? I can actually show, there's a link, Lauren, on our website. I'll share this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see where to find that. So after this, you can always go there and have another look.
Sure. That's a really great question, because I know a lot of people who are planning to move across from New Zealand. And earlier this week, I had a conversation with a couple who had actually thought that this particular visa, the skilled independent visa subclass 189 New Zealand stream, would be something that they could apply for once they arrived in Australia. But this visa is actually for New Zealand citizens who basically were here before 19th of February 2016, and who've lived here continuously since that period. So it's not a visa that would be available, or an option that would be available for someone who's just planning on moving across. You know, if they're planning on moving across this year, that visa, unfortunately, is not an option for you. So if you haven't lived here before the 19th of February 2016, just to draw that in, that is not a visa option available for you. So
I think the point too is that people don't realise that it's not available ever, unless that criteria changes. Even if you move here and live here for 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't become available. That date has to change. So we're hoping that it will change. But it's something where we want to encourage people to meet with their local MPs and explain this criteria, because a lot of them don't realise. So for the last 6 years, over 6 years now, New Zealanders that have moved across to Australia have not been able to access this particular visa at all. There is no way around it.
I know, and it's just so unfair, because you know, a lot of people come here skilled, and even if you're not skilled, even if you're, you know, in the lower level, earning a lower income, it's just not fair that this particular visa also has a specific income requirement, and it's not a pathway available for a lot of people who don't meet that income requirement. And it's just not fair, because a lot of people come here, work, pay taxes, and, you know, law-abiding citizens. But unfortunately, if you weren't here before that date, it's not a pathway available to you. So, we will talk about this income requirement, and that's the magic number, isn't it, Edna? The 53,900.
Yeah.
And you have to have taxable income. And where do you get that figure from? You need to look at your notice of assessments, which are available on MyGov. And I know that Edna's got some instructions on the website you can go to about how to get that notice of assessment, because you You actually need the notice of assessment to complete your form as well. So in order to get it, you need to go to MyGov, and there's some instructions there about going to the tax tab, then going to lodgements, income tax history, and you'll find your notice of assessments. So it's not really easy to get to, is it?
No.
So did we have a video? Did you have a video? No.
No, it's something
Yep. No, that wasn't one of the videos. Sorry, ignore. But yes, you need your notice of assessments to have a look at that taxable income number to ensure that it's above 53,900. And you have to have earned above 53,900 in 3 of the last five years.
Yeah.
3 of the last 5 years. So before it was actually 4 years. Am I right? I don't know. Before they actually had a requirement that you met a certain income level for 4 years out of the last 5 years. But luckily from, was it 2001, 1st of July 2001, they amended that. So now...
21. Yeah.
Sorry, 21, sorry.
All these February dates.
All these February dates, honestly. What's their obsession with February? I should know because that's my birthday month too, so it should stick in my mind. But as of 1st of July 2021, they amended that criteria. So it's available to New Zealand citizens who've actually earned a taxable income for 3 out of the last 5 years. 3 out of the last 5 years. And you've got to also demonstrate that you've actually been living here since the 19th of February 2016 as well.
That's right.
And so some of the ways you can do that is you can present utility notices. You can actually present the notice of assessment from 2016 as well as evidence that you were usually resident for that continuous period as well.
Yeah, we found that the department have come back and requested extra evidence at times. So
yeah,
even if we do produce that, so I always ask people to, if they can access their bank statements or remittances or rates notices, Centrelink letters, anything like that to show that they were here. And it's important to note too that those 3 years, it can be any 3 years in the last 5 years, except the most recent financial year has to be one of those 3 years. So at this moment, it's up to, you need to have 2021 notice of assessment has to be at or above that 53,900 at the end of, and that will stand to the 30th of June this year. Then when we go to the 1st of July 2022, what will happen is that the most recent financial year, which will now be 21-22, so ending 30th of June this year, this income for this year will have to be at or above that threshold.
Yes.
For anyone that applies from the 1st of July onwards, and that'll go all the way through to the 30th of June next year. And there's obviously, there's some other things that you need to be aware of, and that's your medicals. If you've got family members, you need to make sure that if there's going to be any risks with medicals, that you get professional advice first. I would recommend, because they have what's called a one fail, all fail rule.
Yes.
Meaning that if one person in the family fails the medical, all of the family members won't be able to get the visa. So that's putting it really simply, it's quite a complex process. And the other one is obviously criminal conviction. So normally character and health are the two big ones that have to be checked off first, but they're not the only things. They're the major ones, but there's a lot of hidden things that can trip up these 189 applications as well. But we've detailed it on our website exactly what the criteria is. Go through that and have a look through, because it has been designed especially for New Zealand citizens to be able to follow and understand. And the other thing too is that there are a couple of exemptions available. Well, there's exemptions available. There's actually quite a few exemptions available, but the unique exemption that became available was you can claim one of the last 2 financial years if your income dropped below that threshold because of COVID. And that could be a fact that you might have dropped back in hours, reduced hours. It could be that you had to take time off work to care for children. Anything to do with COVID having an impact, you have to have evidence of that and evidence to show that you would have earned above that threshold if COVID hadn't have come around and caused you to earn less. So there's that. There's also exemptions available for parents who have children and they have primary care of their children and they can't leave the country like permanently to go back to New Zealand, provided they have some kind of parental agreement or consent orders in place to prove that. So there's maternity leave ones too. There's ones for work cover type claims. There's a few different exemptions, and there is a link on here to help you go and find what that information is. So yeah, that's the 189, but I'll jump out of that because we really want to get on to talking about our two main topics, because we find this hour goes by so quickly.
So quickly.
Yeah, so if there's any other questions, I'll try and keep an eye.
Yep, me too.
On answering those. So how long 461 take if someone already living in Australia on 461? It's already been 6 months. 461 processing times are ages. They can take, off the top of my head, about 30 plus months.
Yep. They're saying now 90% of applications are processed in 30 months.
30 months now, yeah. So, yeah, they take a long time. The most important thing, and we've seen a number of these this year already, and we've talked about them almost every week in our lives, is that 461 visa holders have to be extremely careful. They must apply for another 461 if they're going to do another 461 before their current 461 expires. Now, that visa must be posted to the department. It must be posted to the correct department's address.
Yeah.
If it isn't, it's considered an invalid application, and we've seen one devastating case of that this year. So you must make sure that it's done properly.
Just don't leave it to the last minute. If you try and get it done a month in advance, just to, a couple of weeks in advance, start working on it way in advance.
There's nothing to stop you from applying a year before it comes out even. You can apply for it as soon as you like. You don't need to even wait till it's just about ready to expire. In fact, I say to people, apply at least 3 to 6 months before it expires, because it takes so long to process anyway.
Yes.
It's not going to hurt having it there, because then that person, once that visa expires, they've got an automatic bridging visa to tide them over to the next one.
Exactly.
So hopefully that helps answer that question. Yes, Lynn, thanks goodness for Zoom and video. Great. We're slowly learning how to use this technology to help. New Zealand point-based migration skills. Alorden. Okay, so there is no New Zealand points-based. There is a 189 points-based visa that's got a completely different criteria. We haven't talked about that much. We should do, actually, because that's probably becoming a more prominent pathway for a lot of New Zealanders that came in after the February 2016 cut-off date. But that'll take us quite a while. So we will
future topic.
we'll put that down as a topic. Sorry. Key things is that you've got to meet the points criteria. All right, just having a quick squiz through here before. Okay. Cool. All right, I've got other questions there to answer immediately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a slide example. Just tell me if this works. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
All right, I'll go from the beginning. So this part of our live today, I want to talk about children, citizenship for children. This is a big topic, and I've talked about this a number of times in lives before, but this time I was able to work out how to share a bit of a PowerPoint whilst I talk about that. So hopefully for those of you who might be like me, who are visual learners, you need to see pictures and things in front of you to help kind of comprehend what's involved. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about children who were born in Australia, mostly because that's really significant, but also for children that weren't born in Australia and how do they get citizenship. So we know there's lots of misunderstandings about this. In order to be able to explain the stuff about the children, though, what I've found in my experience is that people don't understand any of the stuff I talk about unless they have enough foundational knowledge about how immigration works for New Zealanders first. So because you need to understand that to understand the next steps for our children. Okay, so bear with me as I go through this. I'll rattle it off, and the good thing is that this is a live video, it's been recorded, so if I'm going too fast you can go back and rewind it and watch it over. All right, so immigration, obviously it's about people traveling overseas, sometimes moving across to other countries, and it's no different when we come from New Zealand to Australia. Our main travel document is a passport. And before I get right into the whole explanation, this is a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not going to read it all, but basically what it's saying is that this shouldn't be constituted as advice. This is just some general information to help people have a resource of where they can go to for some starting information. This information can also change daily because immigration can change daily. In fact, it's the most amended area of legislation in Australia. So what I share with you today, and today is the 6th of May 2022, may not be valid tomorrow or next week or next month. So just be mindful that whenever you are researching any kind of information about visas and citizenship, that the information that you see or read is only as good as what is the most current information that's out there. So we can't accept any responsibility that for people that might want to take this as gospel. It's not, it's just general information, and cases do vary from case to case. And we obviously can't go into every single scenario because we'll be here for days. But this is just kind of like a general overview to help people get started. Okay, so for the purposes of this live and our information sessions, we do have a huge focus on New Zealand citizens. And when I speak about New Zealand citizens, I'm referring to New Zealand citizens, all people who hold New Zealand passports. And some people are New Zealand citizens, even though they may have never been to New Zealand, including people from the Tupalau, Niue and Cook Islands, and sometimes Samoa, depending on certain circumstances and different historical laws. So it's encompassing an enormous range of people, as well as people that have obtained New Zealand citizenship by migrating to New Zealand. So this covers everyone. Now, one of the big questions we get asked is, are New Zealand citizens like all other migrants, particularly when they come to Australia? And that's a yes and no question. Yes and no answer, I mean. In some ways we are, but in many ways we are not the same. And this is because legislation in Australia has been written to specify how New Zealand citizens ought to be treated under the law. So, and that doesn't apply necessarily to anyone else. In fact, it doesn't apply to anyone else. So the first thing that, if you want to learn about how children become citizens, as parents, you need to know what your own immigration status is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. This is the fundamental starting point for anyone needing to find out more about how immigration works for them. We must start with, what is your immigration status? Now, there are two key immigration statuses to start with. The first question I would ask a person is, are you an Australian citizen? Or if you're not an Australian citizen, you're what's called a non-citizen. It's today's terminology. It's the latest kind of way the department and government describe people who aren't Australian citizens. You're called a non-citizen. They don't talk about permanent residents or temporary residents or anything like that. These are the two key categories. So if you're an Australian citizen, you would normally know, but not always, you would normally know that you are. Telltale signs are, do you have an Australian passport? Were you born in Australia? Or do you have an Australian citizenship certificate? Now, the citizenship certificate and passport are giveaways that you probably are an Australian citizen, 99.999% sure. And I say not 100% because some people have had their passports and things revoked from them because the department has made errors in issuing them. But anyway, 99.99%. And for people who are born in Australia, they're not necessarily Australian citizens, although often they are. So that has to be assessed kind of separately. So there's two main groups. So that's the first thing I want you to understand. The next thing we go to is we break that down a bit more. So when you're a non-citizen, that means you must be some kind of visa holder, or you might be unlawful, meaning that you don't have a valid visa to remain lawfully on shore in Australia. So what we do here is we break it down some more. So are you a permanent resident? Are you a temporary resident? Are you a citizen? Not sure. Or are you unsure? And for New Zealand citizens, New Zealand passport holders, we find that number 4, unsure is probably the most common answer. If you know what you are, feel free to, pop it into the comments, or if you're unsure, let us know. But we find more times than not, people are unsure what their status is. So this is where we start to break it down. Again, this leads into how it affects our children and how we work out what they are. So just going back a little step now, talking about New Zealand passport holders, the most common immigration process for us is that most of us fly here nowadays and go through the customs process. So you have Australian Border Force, you have Australian Customs, and we go through that process. Now, to do that, before we can enter Australia, we have to present our passports. And this is a little bit outdated because this orange card here, most of you will be familiar with it. This is an incoming passenger card. Now, these have been done away with. We've got the digital ones, and to be honest, I haven't actually used the digital one yet because I haven't.
Neither have I,
yeah, since they were introduced. They were introduced only in recent months, so I can't remember exactly what they were. I think it was this year. And so anyway, normally the process is this: we present our passport, we have filled out this card front and back, and we present this at customs. Now, once this has been checked off by a customs officer or border force, they will normally stamp it or sign it off, and then they'll give you your passport back and let you through the gates, and that's it. Now, every migrant has to fill in this, and even citizens have to fill in this card. So every person who enters Australia, no matter what their status is, has to fill out this card. Now, it makes no difference that it's a digital version now. It's still the same difference. The difference, however, with New Zealand citizens is that this card means something quite different under law than it does for any other migrant. And that's why I say this is where the differences start to occur. Now, when other migrants come into Australia, they fill out a visa application form. They have to get their visa. They can't get a visa without it. We don't fill out a form. And so also we think, but actually under law, this little card that we've been filling out forever and a day is actually a visa application form for New Zealanders. So it converts to a visa application. We don't know this. In fact, the card on the front and the back doesn't say it anywhere that this is, if you're a New Zealand citizen, this is your visa application. So because it's a visa application for us, it actually has added burdens and weights and things. So that it's really important that this is filled out correctly, because other areas of law can kick in if it's not. So we want to make sure that this is done properly, but that's how that little bit works. Okay, so bear with me. I know these are fiddly little details, but they're important to understand. And the other thing that's unique about New Zealand citizens, when we come into Australia, we present the card, show our passport, get scanned. If we're lucky, we're allowed through the gates. Now, the other thing that happens differently is that we're the only migrant that does not get given in any shape or form a visa grant letter, a letter to say that your visa has been approved and these are the conditions of your visa and this is your immigration status. Now, every other migrant that comes into Australia has a visa grant letter of some kind. We don't. And this is where a lot of the misunderstandings and misinformation starts. It starts from the very beginning when we come through into Australia. Which is why we have so many issues with this. All right, so once you're approved, you are automatically granted what's called the TY444 visa, which is a special category visa. This visa is only available to New Zealand citizens. It is in the law, it's in the legislation very clearly. It's for New Zealand passport holders only, so no other migrants can access this visa. When once upon a time we used to get the wet stamps and the passports, but everything is digital now, so we don't know, there's no hints or clues as to what our status is. So now, before I go into statuses and things like that, like permanent, temporary residence, I'm going to show you something that is not anything to do with immigration, but I'm going to link it back to immigration, because this is the next bit of information is quite abstract. And again, understanding how this information works, the next lot of information works, will link back to your children. Okay, so do bear with me. All right, so one of the first things we want to do is do a visa entitlement verification online, or VIVO check, you might hear. We do offer this service for free. If you go on our website, you'll see that there's a link there where you can fill out a form for us to do that on your behalf, because we find New Zealand citizens have a difficult time otherwise trying to do this, because you normally need your visa details. And when you don't get given a visa letter in the first place, you don't have those details, and your passport is not enough for you to get this done. So these are done online ordinarily, and we can access them. Okay, so just want to show you quickly what a VIVO check looks like. When a VIVO check comes back, I've just taken a screenshot of the most important information on the VIVO. And this is what it looks like for all New Zealand citizens who come in with a passport only, that have not been granted a visa of any other kind. So this VIVO here shows that this person is of the TY444 visa, so you can see it there. And also the date that the visa was granted and how many entries are allowed. But right at the top, you'll see that it says what status this person is, and it says temporary resident. Now, I normally show this in my face-to-face information sessions, and I ask the audience, when do you think this New Zealander came to live in Australia? And hands go up, and probably one of the most common answers is the 25th of June, 2019. Now, the answer to that is that's actually not when this New Zealander came to live in Australia. This New Zealander in particular has been living in Australia since the early 1980s. And this is often a shock, particularly for our New Zealand people that have been living here for a long time. So this is where it starts to really hit home that all of our New Zealand people that have been living here for a long time are actually temporary residents. And I'm sure many of them have been classing themselves as permanent residents, okay? But this VIVO will show for every single New Zealand citizen that doesn't have any other visa or hasn't become an Australian citizen, a dual citizen, they are actually a temporary resident. And where it says entries allowed, single entry only, means that this visa is issued for one entry only. every time a New Zealand citizen leaves Australia, even to go overseas for a holiday or visit family, your visa actually ends, it ceases. And then when you come back into the country, you go through that whole immigration process again. You show your passport, fill out your incoming passenger card, present it at customs, and bingo, if you're lucky, you get granted a new 444 visa. And when I say new, every visa has its own, it's normally 12-digit visa grant number. And I haven't shown that on here, but everyone's got a visa grant number. And every time you come back into the country, you will be issued a brand new visa grant number. Okay. And I do say to people, just as a little side note, be aware that if the Australian government were to change the rules around the 444 visa and say from now on, New Zealanders must apply for a 444 using a different type of visa application form before they're allowed to come in. They can't just get it at customs anymore. If you're unlucky to be stuck out, outside the country at that moment, then you could have trouble getting back into the country. So it's not something that I say is going to happen, but what I'm saying is it can happen. It's very possible. And the Department of Home Affairs are not obligated to forewarn us of any changes. They don't even forewarn us as migration agents in the industry of changes, let alone letting everyone know. Be nice if they have the courtesy to do that, but they don't have to. And this can be changed at any given time with the stroke of a pen. So just something to be mindful of, that this visa is only given under today's processes.
So Edina, if your employer were to do a check, say you were going to get a new job and they wanted to check your visa status, it will show only the last time you entered into Australia. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yes.
So it's not going to show when you first arrived in Australia or how long you've been here. It's just going to show your last arrival into Australia.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a good point. The VIVO check is really important. We find that a lot of New Zealand people need their VIVO for job interviews and job applications. Employers are seem to be asking more and more for the VIVO check, because they need to be compliant with immigration, because they have to be sure that whoever they employ has an appropriate visa to be in Australia. Okay. The other part of the VIVO that's not shown on here is it does say that you're allowed to stay indefinitely, but employers are very hesitant when they see the temporary resident status, and it does have an impact on New Zealanders sometimes. All right, so that's a little bit about how you can find out what your status is. If you don't know exactly what your immigration status is, this is how you find out a VIVO check. For us to do it, we need to have your passport details. Okay, now this is the linking into some previous knowledge that you might already have. So rather than just jump into immigration and tell you all about how immigration works, I want to link it into immigration is like holding a driver's license. And because most people are familiar with the process of the driver's license, so you start off with your L plates, you move to your P plates, and then you can move on to your full license. Immigration is exactly the same for New Zealanders, but there is a weird twist, which is why this is a good analogy to use, I've found over time, to help people understand. Again, this does link into your children, so hope you're still following with me. All right, so L plate, you might have guessed, is a bit like holding a temporary visa, or you're a temporary resident, okay? So if you hold a 444 visa, remember what the VIVO check says, you're a temporary resident. That's what you are. You are an L plater. Your immigration status is the same as an L plate. Now, our other L platers might be people who are here visiting on a visitor visa or tourist visa, people here on a working holiday visa, people here who are on a subclass 461 visa. Any of the temporary visa ranges is like an L plate. Okay, I think that's pretty straightforward. Now, a P plate is the same as a permanent resident. So a person who holds a P plate generally holds a permanent visa of some sort, or under law, they were recognised as a permanent resident. So that's what a permanent resident is in layman's terms. So we've got the L plater and the P plater. And then, of course, the full license is like being an Australian citizen. So this is where you get the Australian citizenship certificate. You're allowed to apply for an Australian passport if you hold a full driver's license. That's the same. Okay, so those are the three key levels. But there is a bit of a twist with New Zealanders. So as I said before, you know, as New Zealand citizens, typically we're 444 visa holders, but we are divided into two main groups. And this is where it gets really murky and complicated, because parts of the law will identify the two groups, but not clearly and not cohesively. And unless you really know what you're reading, it can be, you can get totally lost with this next stage. So group one of the 444 visa holders. So these are, they're ordinary special category visa holders. Every New Zealander, doesn't matter how long they've lived in Australia, unless they hold another visa or a dual citizen, they're going to hold a 444 visa. So that's the first group. This is everybody. But now the second group is divided. So we're all 444 visa holders, but there's this kind of line in the sand that's drawn. So 444 visas holders, as I was saying, we're also known as non-protected SCV holders. Now that might be a familiar term with what people are used to hearing, because that's got to do a lot more with social security law. So Centrelink will consider, are you a New Zealand citizen? Are you a 444 visa holder who is non-protected, or the opposite, being protected? So the other term for a non-protected SCV holder, it's just a 444 visa holder special category. So that's it. Then we have the other group of 444 visa holders. Just to stipulate what's a non-protected SCV holder. The group of non-protected SCV holders typically are New Zealand citizens who arrived after the 26th of February 2001 onwards. Yep. So this is the typical status of those New Zealand citizens. So if you're a New Zealand citizen who came to live in Australia after the 26th of February 2001, you are you're probably not protected, but it does pay to drill down, and that's where the consultation is really important to get this right. Again, this is not advice, this is just some general information, but we're simplifying it as much as we can. Okay, the second group of 444 visa holders, I sometimes refer to these groups as the haves and the have-nots. The have-nots are the non-protected SCV holders. The second group are the haves. This is the group that's luckier than a non-protected. Still 444 visa holders, still temporary residents, but they're also known as protected SCV holders. So again, opposite to that non-protected, they're protected. And what does that mean? I'll explain in a moment, but there's another really important term that I introduce here, and it's called eligible New Zealand citizen. Now, this is a term we don't hear much of, and you'll see on our website, there's a whole section on what is an eligible New Zealand citizen. This is super important. If you're a New Zealand citizen listening to this and you don't know much about immigration, you need to go and read up about what is an eligible New Zealand citizen, because you need to understand what your status is. So eligible New Zealand citizen is where we see this title used in the legislation. So when it comes to the Migration Act, visas, this is where you won't see the legislation, not when it comes to immigration, talk about protected SCV holders. It is protected SCV holders, a term used in Social Security, so that's what you'll hear from Centrelink. Eligible New Zealand citizen is what you'll hear from immigration, okay? But the two are the same. Now, what's unusual about this, and this is the only status like it in all of Australia, in all of Australian history that I know of, is this status is where a person holds an L plate plus they hold a P plate, both at the same time. So imagine that if you've got a driver's license and someone says, you know, are you an L plater or a P plater? If you don't have a full license, you go, oh, I'm an L and P plater on both. There's no such thing. Now, immigration is the same, and this is not, and this is where we get this confusion. So, because an L plate is a temporary resident and a P plate is a permanent resident. But here you've got someone who's both a temporary resident and a permanent resident together. All right, so that's what a protected SCV holder is, or an eligible New Zealand citizen. They hold the L plate because they hold the 444 visa, but under law, for some reason, they're also considered a P plater because the law has determined that this group of New Zealand citizens are permanent residents in some circumstances. Okay, you're not a permanent resident under the Migration Act, but you are, excuse me, you are considered a permanent resident under other areas of law, such as social security and also the Citizenship Act. So this is why this group of New Zealanders are allowed to access Centrelink payments, and they are allowed to access citizenship. And the ones that hold L plates can't just access Centrelink or all of the Centrelink stuff, nor can they access citizenship directly.
I think that term eligible can be very confusing for people and deceiving at the same time, wouldn't you say it?
Yeah,
because you think of eligible, you think it's something you have a right to obtain, you know, that's me, because, you know, it's attached to New Zealand citizen. So you think, oh, that's me. But when
I'm
when
eligible.
you drill down, yeah, I'm eligible.
But how do you determine if a New Zealand citizen is actually eligible? So this is how we determine it.
Yep.
It is a little bit tricky to follow, but there are three main areas. A protected SCV holder or eligible New Zealand citizen. It is someone who was either in Australia on the 26th of February 2001, and I'm going to emphasize this very quickly. I'll read it again. In Australia on the 26th of February 2001. Doesn't say that you had to have been living here. If you were here on that day, even if you were here for that one day only, come over for a one-day holiday or passing through and were processed through immigration, you are protected. The other way you might be assessed as protected is if you were here for 365 days or more between the 26th of February 99 and the 26th of February 2001. So this is for people who weren't here on the 26th of February 2001 on that actual day, but they were living here for at least 12 months. Or they don't have to have been living here. They could have just been here working. This happened in my husband's case. He was here working, and he happened to be here for about 375 days or something. He just kind of got in. So he was an eligible New Zealand citizen. And there's a third group, and I won't go into detail about it here, but the third group has been issued a Centrelink certificate, and it means that they were assessed as what's known as a transitional customer. So that's something that's very complex, and this is for a group of New Zealanders that might have come in the first 3 months of the laws changing in 2001. So from the 27th of February 2001 to the 25th of May 2001. They're the only group of New Zealanders that might be assessed as transitional customers, and they can access a Centrelink certificate. If they can do that, then they are also protected or eligible New Zealand citizens. Okay. Hopefully I haven't lost anyone. So here is where I've just elaborated a bit more on the transitional customer. And there's a little bit of information there, but I won't go into it today. Now, so the two categories of 444 visa holders are broken up, as I was saying before. One of those groups are LNP platers at the same time. So they're protected, they're eligible New Zealand citizens, or they might be transitional customers. They are the protected group. They are the group that can apply for citizenship directly. The ones that just hold L plates, just like I did, because I came and lived in Australia in 2007, myself and my family, we were L platers only. Oh, apart from my husband, who we discovered years later was a LNP plater as well. So those are the two groups. But remember, the LNP plater, they can access Centrelink and citizenship. The issue is that those things mean nothing to LNP platers if they don't access them. So I always encourage them, look, go and get citizenship. You never know, that status could be taken away in a heartbeat. Like, it's just, the laws change. All right, so now how does this link back to children? Going back, so citizenship for children, depending on what status mum or dad is, will affect the status of a child. So I'll just go back here quickly. If parents have children in Australia at a certain time, and I'll go through and break it down, but the general rule nowadays is if you're an LNP plater, and from 2001 onwards, if you've had a child born in Australia and you hold an L and a P plate, your child or children are Australian citizens at birth. They don't wait till their 10th birthday, because it's the other rule, which I'll talk about. Those children are citizens at birth. If you're an L plate and you have children born in Australia, if both mum and dad are L platers, for example, then their children have to wait for the 10-year rule. Okay, so I'll go into explaining that in a second. So this is for kids. I'll talk about the kids born in Australia first. So when we get Australian citizenship, we apply for a citizenship certificate, which is an official document proving that a person is a citizen. And it's important for all of our kids to get this, because there's so many things that can go wrong with immigration. If you have a citizenship certificate, it guarantees you citizenship, and it actually makes sure that your child is secure. Even if mum and dad were Australian citizens, if they were New Zealanders beforehand, especially, I would still encourage them to get their child a citizenship certificate, because this kind of stuff can come back and bite you decades later if you don't have this right kind of evidence. But that's another conversation, that one. So citizenship at birth, as I was saying before, these are the groups of New Zealand, of children that are Australian citizens at birth. They are Australian citizens if they are born to a mum or a dad, or both, who are LNP platers, or mum or dad was a P plater, permanent resident, so eligible New Zealand citizens or protected Scv holders, or permanent resident. And remember, permanent resident is not a person who's living here permanently. It's someone who holds a permanent visa or has been determined to have permanent resident status, or the driver's license, the full driver's license, which is mum or dad an Australian citizen at the time of the child's birth. So this is for children born in Australia. There's one other rule, and if you read the slide, it's also for children who were born before the 20th of August 1986. So 100%, if your birthday is before the 20th of August 1986 and you're born in Australia, it doesn't actually matter what status your parents are.
Yes.
They are citizens at birth regardless. However, the laws did change between August 86 to August 94. Children born in that era weren't citizens at birth. They had to wait for their 10th birthday and live in Australia for the first 10 years. Okay, so it is quite tricky, but that's how it works for kids born in Australia, if you want to know if they're citizens at birth. For every other child who is born in Australia, they have to have lived here, been ordinarily resident in Australia from birth to their 10th birthday. They can go overseas for holidays and short stays, but they need to have been living here ordinarily for the first 10 years of their life. If they are, they will automatically be granted Australian citizenship on their 10th birthday, but you will not get notified of that. So the department does not go around and send out Australian citizenship certificates or a letter to say, you've been living here for 10 years, your child is now an Australian citizen. They don't do that. It's up to you as a parent to apply for that Australian citizenship certificate, because you need that to be able to apply for a passport, and and that is your solid evidence of your status. We've seen people almost get deported from Australia who fit this rule. Yes. And immigration did not assess whether they were Australian citizens. They were born here, they'd been living here for the first 10 years of their life. Immigration will not be, they don't take responsibility. They leave it up to you to work it out. That's why we do encourage people to get citizenship certificates for their kids, regardless. But that's how the 10-year rule works. The other rule is if children are born overseas outside of Australia, if they've got a mum or dad who's a citizen at the time they were born, and those types of instances, I should say, they can apply for citizenship by descent. That is a physical application that parents or the child, if they're an adult now, must do on their own. They're not granted it automatically, not like New Zealand. New Zealand grants our kids the citizenship automatically. The UK grants their, kids children born to UK parents get granted automatically. This is where the whole dual citizenship debacle happened in Parliament, where politicians were having to leave left, right and centre because they were automatically citizens of other countries because of their parents' status. But in Australia, you are not automatically given Australian citizenship. So if you're born outside the country and mum or dad was a citizen at the time you were born, go and get your citizenship certificate, apply for Australian citizenship. Now be mindful that if you're an adult, you actually have to pass a character test to get your citizenship if mum or dad or both mum and dad were Australian citizens at the time you were born. So I always encourage people, if your children are young, get it, just in case they might end up with a conviction and that can block them from getting their Australian citizenship, which is a crazy thing to have to say, but that's how it works, unfortunately. Is that all clear so far, Kathleen? You following me?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. A big one we get asked about, especially kids who are born overseas. Yeah. People get a bit confused about that. So that's good to cover.
Yeah. So I think we're almost to the end of this, and our hour is up almost already. So children born overseas to parents who aren't Australian citizens at all, they have got no other pathway to citizenship unless they become permanent residents. So children in their own right have to be P-platers. So if you have a child born in New Zealand and you moved over here when they were 6 months old, if they, I've heard people say, oh, but we've been living here for 10 years now, so my child becomes an Australian citizen. That's not correct. Your child has to be recognised as a permanent resident. The only way your child can have that is if mum or dad applies for a permanent visa for that child. Now, there are limitations so parents can't just apply for permanent visas outright. Only certain parents can sponsor their children for a permanent visa. So when I say certain parents who are Australian citizens after their child was born, they can sponsor their children if they're under 18. They can sponsor children who are 18 and over, but it's a lot harder. So if you're going to do something for your kids, do it before their 18th birthday is my main advice there. You can also sponsor your child if you are a P-plater yourself. So if you hold a permanent visa now, you can sponsor your child or children. Or if you are an L and P-plater, if you're a protected Scv holder or an eligible New Zealand citizen, you are allowed to sponsor your children as well. Now, children include your biological children. It doesn't necessarily include stepchildren. You can include adopted. You can sponsor children who are formally adopted, but they have to be formally adopted. So we can't sponsor our children if they are whāngai,
Mm.
if they're our, foster children, things like that. We can't sponsor them. They have to be formally adopted. Once upon a time you could, up until about November 2016, but now you can't. So it's really, really limited as to who parents can sponsor. There is such a thing as a child orphan visa, and this is if a child is either orphan or there's got to be really extenuating circumstances as to why they can't live with their parents. Even children who have been removed from parents can't qualify for the orphan visa necessarily. So it's very, very strict. But yeah, that's how you make your child a permanent resident. You either sponsor them, or if you're a parent who's not a P plater, you become a P plater by applying for a visa of some sort, a visa that gives you permanent resident status. So for many New Zealanders, it might be the 189 New Zealand stream visa where you have to earn that 53,900. If you do that, you can actually include your children, and you can include children who are your stepchildren in those ones. So the criteria does change for our kids depending on the types of visas. Again, this is where the assessment's really important. And I've just done a little bit of a list of costs because people often want to know how much does it cost.
Yes.
So evidence of citizenship, this is that's just for a citizenship certificate to prove that your child is a citizen. That's $240. If you're applying for citizenship by descent, it's $315. And if you're applying for citizenship by conferral, that means your child's a P plater and they can apply for citizenship down the track, then it's $300. So that's the cost of citizenship. Citizenship isn't that expensive at all. It's the P plate stage, it's the visa process that's normally quite costly. And the fees that I've given you, that's the department's fees if you're applying directly to the department. We do applications. People sometimes ask us, do we do them? Yes, we do. And we have our own professional fees. And it depends what type of application it is, depends on the complexity. We will assess the case before we give a quote on how much that is. All right. Lynn, okay, I've just seen a question pop up. Hang on. Would my granddaughter born in Australia to an Australian mother and a Kiwi father, would she have to do anything still living in Australia? No, she wouldn't. I mean, she's an Australian citizen if mum's an Australian citizen at her time of her birth. But I do encourage all parents to get the Australian citizenship certificate for their child, even if just one parent is an Australian citizen, because if the other parent is a non-citizen, this is where the conflict can come in, because later on in their life they might have to engage with other government departments and education and all those types of things where their immigration status is being assessed. And we have seen children be incorrectly assessed on a number of occasions by the other government departments or stakeholders. And the way to deal with that problem is to have a citizenship certificate. And of course, they can go in and get a passport, that helps too. But a citizenship certificate cannot be easily revoked. An Australian passport can. We have seen people be stripped of Australian passports. So that's why we encourage people to get the citizenship certificate. I think that's it. Sophie, sorry if I'm jumping ahead. That's okay, Sophie. Once an Australian born child with L plate parents is granted citizenship, can they sponsor their L plate parents to then apply for PR? Does the child have to be 18 to do that? That's a really good question. The answer, can children who become Australian citizens sponsor their parents? The answer is yes. Yes, they can. I'm not sure if they have to be 18 though. We'll have to look at that criteria. To be honest, we don't look at this type of visa for the New Zealand families because these particular visas can take decades in some cases to be granted, or the ones that can be granted sooner cost in the tens of thousands of dollars. So we normally, and because we can still live here with our 444 visa at the moment, most people wouldn't go down that path. But other migrants do who need their parents to be able to live in Australia. They don't have any other options. They'll often go down the path of applying for a temporary visa for their parents or a permanent visa. But they do vary. There's a number of different types of parent visas.
Yeah. My understanding is that if the child is under 18, then you can be sponsored by an eligible relative or community organisation. But again, it depends on the visa.
I see.
Like, for example, that the one that I'm looking at now is the 143.
143. Yeah.
The contributory parent visa.
Yeah.
So it just depends on which visa subclass you're looking at as well.
Yeah, there's approximately 100 different types of visas. The majority of them we don't do because they don't benefit our focus audience, the New Zealand citizens, and we're branching out into the Pacific Island nations people, and 461 visa holders is another big area that we cover. All right. I think that's it. That's us. And that's our bit of our motto. We believe all long-term non-citizens living in Australia deserve security and peace of mind. To do that, it's best to become an Australian citizen or a dual citizen. Remember, we don't lose our citizenship if we become Australian citizens as well. We can have both.
That's good.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we've got lots of free information on our website as well. We've got our YouTube channel. We've got our Facebook page. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletter as well. And also our free callback service as well. Our 10-minute free callback service is available. So all of that you can access from the website as well. But, we're here and we're eager to help you out. A consultation is always the first best step as well.
Yeah. And I've got some really exciting news as of next week. Well, for the next 2 weeks at least, we're going to be having guests join us. So the guests that are joining us are people who are been our clients or past clients or their current clients even. We've put out an invitation and we want to put out an invitation to all of our past clients who might like to join us live on Zoom, and they'll come in and we'll just they'll share their experience, their immigration journey, and hopefully those will we'll build up a library of scenarios so that as people are doing their own research or wanting to look into this further, they might be able to see a case that they can relate to. But it is always good to hear it from people that have gone through the process. Both Kathleen and I have been through the immigration process. Our families have been through the immigration process. So we do have that as well as part of our experience with dealing with families. But I think it's going to be nice to hear from other people and we don't have to do all the talking.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Yeah. So next week we've got the Pareida whānau from up in Brisbane. They attended an information session that I had up there last year, and that turned out to be a really, really complex case, and they were granted their visas last week. So they're very excited and going to come, and they're going to jump online and share their story, and and we've already got someone lined up for the week after. So very excited.
It is very exciting.
Okay, so thank you to everyone for joining us. It's 10:45 where I am, and my moko
will
arrive in about an hour and a half, I think. So I hope you all have a really lovely day and great weekend ahead. Thanks again to Kathleen. It's so good to be able to have someone else to share these lives with and what we've done.
No, thank you, Edna. Even though despite feeling unwell, you still were able to share so much, wealth of information that I think a lot of people are going to find useful, especially those that are going to be thinking about moving over in the near future. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, oh no, all good. Thank you to everyone that was following us today, and I hope for the people that might watch these videos in the future, you'll find that this information is helpful to you too. Okay, now I've got to stop. This is always my little thing at the end.